Anyway, I appreciate everybody coming today. I'm just so we're clear, this is going to be recorded, this discussion. That's okay. And we are going this way. We can start talking about what's happening in Iran from a different perspective. Just a couple things. On Monday at 11 o'clock, from 11 to 1 on Capitol Hill in the U.S. Capitol, room HC8, we are going to be hosting a conference. It's about for 2 hours. It's a discussion about Kurdistan and Iraq. It's entitled Unity or Breakup. It's a conversation about Kurdish independence, whether it's a good idea or not.
And when is that? Where is that going to be? I'm sorry.
Monday, 11 to 1, room HC8 in the U.S. Capitol.
HC8. C8, the Capitol.
Correct. As many of you know, I'm a senior fellow at Saran University in Erbil, Iraq. And I focus a bit on Kurdish matters. So we've decided to have this conversation. Just what should U.S. policy be with regards to Kurdish independence? Is it a good idea? Not a good idea, and so on. You have many people in Congress who believe it is a good idea. You have many people in Congress who will tell you that it is not it's not a good idea, but may or may not know why, one way or the other. So this is an opportunity to have a conversation about this. The speakers or the participants in this discussion are going to be myself, as well as Vice President of Saran University, Dr. Naro Zagros, who is also a London Center Senior Fellow. We also will have Congressman Trent Franks, who will be hosting this along with London Center and Saran. We have with us as well on Monday Ernie Odino, General Ernie Odino, who's a London Center Senior Fellow. He'll be participating as he was embedded with the Kurdish Peshmerga for more than a year. Dr. Kamal Kolo, who is the Dean of Scientific Research at Saran University, and Dr. Walid Perez, who is a London Center Senior Fellow. And finally, we have, and possibly most notably, Bayan Abdul Rahman, who is the KRG, the Kurdish regional government representative to the United States, here at the head of the Kurdish mission here in Washington. So she'll be participating as well. It's going to be the setup for the conversation then will be similar to what it is today. And this is the perfect segue here. So we have Salah Bayazidi here, who is the representative from the Komala party of Iranian Kurdistan here with us today. And what he's going to do is he's going to speak for about 10 minutes, and then this is going to be open to discussion and conversation about anything that he has discussed. Sometime maybe even things that you haven't discussed. Just depends on where the conversation goes. It's a free flow conversation following his remarks. Now I have given you the entire background of Salah that I am going to do, because what I'm going to ask you to do, which I haven't told you about before, is if you can give us the lay of the land. What is Kurdistan like from a political perspective? I know you represent the Komala party, but what are we talking about? And also, if you can just take 2 seconds really to discuss the difference between Iranian Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, Syrian, and Turkey. So therefore, people understand that when you talk about Kurdish independence, for example, when one talks about Kurdish independence, it's not talking about the entire Kurdistan. When you're talking about what you're going to talk about today, you're not talking about Turkey, you're not talking about Syria, you're talking about Iran. And so that way it gives people the lay of the land. So if you can give a little bit of your background as well, and then go into that and talk about it.
Thank you all to be here. First of all, I want to thank the London Center Policy Center for hosting this event, especially Dr. Ali Gold and his colleagues. The topic is about Iranian opposition. Doesn't want to start from there in Iran. Unfortunately, we don't have a viable, strong Iranian opposition abroad. And there's because 10 minutes really is a little bit short, maybe in the hours I'll discuss why we don't have a strong Iranian opposition. The only thing we have is a Kurdish resistance movement, which is historically strong because it has a historical background. As Dr. Gold asked, I want to talk a little bit about historical background of the Kurdistan. Kurdistan in the 1514, over 500 years ago, it was divided between Ottoman and Persian Empire. Until up to that time, it was one entity, but divided between two empires. But after that, there was Principality of Kurdistan exist on both sides. Still, it was Kurdish self-rule. There was no, we all know the nationalism and the country just created maybe in the 19th century in Europe. So Kurdish Principality existed. So all things changed at late 19th century when the Ottoman was become weakening. At one point, they called them the sick man of Europe. And the same thing for Persian Empire. At 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement divided Kurdistan in 4 parts. And they created 2 artificial countries, Iraq and Syria. They had no head of state, they had no history of the governing. They brought some tribal sheikh from the Saudi Arabia to govern both Syria and Iraq. And at one point, they promised the Kurds they have one country in the Paris Conference. But eventually, with the rise of Ataturk, 1923, in Lausanne Agreement, the Kurds lost the bet, and the Kurdish independence lost as well. Iraqi Kurds become part of Iraq. The Syrian Kurds are become part of the new government of Syria, and the Turkey took the Kurdistan and the Armenian part in Turkey. So in these 4 countries, the Kurds, entire 20th century, tried to resist to these 4 countries. They are strong military, military background government, so they suppressed the Kurds with iron fist. They Kurds in 20th century even undergone a genocide, chemical bombardment, and the Anfal campaign in Iraq in 1988. This took the life of close to 200,000, and still we don't know about the fate of these people. So this horrendous horror happened at the Kurds. But today I want to talk about the Iranian Kurdistan. We hear about today, these days, last couple of years, about the Kurds in Iraq. Now, fortunately, Iraqi Kurdistan is moving toward independence on September 25th. There's a referendum, and we hear about Kurds in Syria, which is they are very close, small minority, but even though they are very strong collective force, which the U.S. and the allies depend on them to war against ISIS. And the Turkey, unfortunately, until 2 years ago, it was a hope, the peace process. Eventually, Turkey, its course could be strong, good for both Kurdistan and Turkey. But unfortunately, now there's a problem there. But we literally hear about Iranian Kurdistan. Iranian Kurdistan about 10 to 12 million population in 4 mainly provinces. Iranian Kurdistan is historically, there's Kurdish nationalism started from that part. There's 1946, there was Republic of Kurdistan in Mahabad. And in 1979, the Kurds joined the revolution to change their life. But the day the called Islamic Revolution in 1979, it indeed never took place in Kurdistan. Kurdistan did not attend, they boycotted the referendum to Islamic Republic, yes or no. So from that point, the new rulers in Iran, they looked at the Kurds as an enemy. So it didn't take much longer. Khomeini, in the summer of 1979, to order onslaught jihad against the Kurds. So 3 months fighting between the Kurds and new revolutionary guards, they become defeated. They offer the peace, but they didn't look really for the peace. They recruited, and after 1 year against, it took 10 years to Kurdish army struggle to be defeated, mean militarily. But Kurdish political movement in Iran is very strong. In the last 10, 15 years, the rise of Kurdish nationalism in the whole region, we see very strong political, cultural uprising in Iranian Kurdistan. And Iranian government still look the Kurdistan as the only place still the political execution is existing. In all this part of, even though some reform happened on the part of Iran, but still just we had a news 2 weeks ago, some Kurdish political prisoners been executed in Iran. And since Rouhani came to power, over 3,000 prisoners been executed, which is large, is equal previous president, so-called Rouhani, the reformist. So the Kurds in Iran, we look there in any direction they're suppressed by the government about the budget allocation. Kurdistan is rich in oil, in natural resources, in agriculture, but Kurdistan is one of the largest kind of gold in the world, but there's nothing for them. They've all been plundered by the Revolutionary Guard. Now they are a big company inside Iran. We have because they keep the Kurdistan area so poor. We see a lot of educated university students, they do cross-border couriering, and they've been shot by the border guards. Every year we have a name of close to 200 people being killed indiscriminately by the border guard. In case of the budget allocation, we see Kurdistan is among the poorest of the part of the country in Iran. So and religion Kurds are among, as we see in Iraqi Kurdistan, about tolerance community in the region. Just in my hometown in Mahabad, I know Deneb was 3 part of city neighborhood. It was a Jewish neighborhood and Christian, Armenian neighborhood and Kurdish. Even though the Jews long time ago left for the Israel, but still the neighborhood still remained at the same name. But now I want back to what I started last about the Kurds in Iran. We now unfortunately for last 8 years before previous administration and especially last 2 years, even the State Department cut any contact with the Kurdish and Iranian opposition because the Iranian nuclear deal. We did not oppose to any Iran nuclear deal, but at the time we had argument Iran nuclear deal should not be at the expense of the human rights and ethnic and religious group inside Iran. But unfortunately, it did not took place. As we know, all you know better than me, Iran got a big chunk of money, over $150 billion, and Iran now is in the Yemen, Iraq, probably take over Iraq and Syria and all the region. With the weakness of the Arab Gulf country, especially after the Qatar crisis, there is a fear of the direct Iranian military armed with Saudi Arabia in coming days, because Iran minister just said yesterday. And on Monday, when State Department released its announcement about Iran deal, I was really expecting much harsher languages, but it said Iran complied with the nuclear deal, which was discouraging, even though they put some sanctions, some minor sanctions, some groups and the Iranian government. We expected, because new administration being much stronger against Iranian domination in the region.
How many Kurds are there in Iran?
You know, the Kurdish numbering for those 4 countries always is a security matter. You know? But estimation is about 10 to 12 million. 12 million. Yes. It's a combined more than Iraqi and Syrian Kurds.
Wow. Okay. how many political parties are there in Kurdistan? Iran?
Kurdish, there is two main Kurdish political parties, Kurmala Party and KDPI, but there is some smaller group, which is like Iraq Kurdistan, we have a KDP and the PUK. So that's two groups.
I was just gonna say, are they, obviously, are they aligned either to the Iranian side or more to the Iraqi side? Oops, the Kurdistan.
Sorry, what do you mean?
In other words, would they favor to be more independent of Iraq or Iran to form their own country, or?
Every Kurd is allowed to have their own country, but sometimes we understand the reality on the ground. Now Iraqi Kurdistan is very strong economically and militarily, and international community even was supporting the Iraqi Kurds since the rise of ISIS and what people see how Iran handling Iraq, but still is very difficult to Kurds become independent. Iranian Kurds at this point asking for federal Iran, maybe it's going to be changed in the future. How? Because unfortunately, at the beginning I said there is no Iranian opposition because two important things happened in the region. One is in Iraq, there was small minority of Sunni minority, 25%. They ruled Iraq for 100 years. Now, since fall of Saddam, the Sunni can never come back to power. In the Syria, against 15% Shia Alawi ruled Syria. But now, we never hope. So, unfortunately, this scare, this fear, has affected on Iranian opposition, like a Persian national. So I saw a lot of comment in the mass media and TV. They want to be even alliance with the current government against the fear of the Kurdish separatism. So that's the reason we don't have a really strong Iranian opposition.
What was the effect when President Obama didn't step in and help the resistance forces in Iran? What was the effect on the Kurds?
The effect was tremendous. 2009 Green Movement we started. Even though I have some criticism of the Green Movement, it was some. But for the first time, million Iranians come to the Tehran street. 3-4 million. It could be, just U.S. announcing some, the people see the international community supporting them. That was really disappointing. That disappointment still has an effect because the still regime said using that as a pretext, saying the international world, our major powers, they're using you as a taunt. So that's a really big effect. That could be. We still Iranian look for international community support because that's like big president inside Iran. They suppressed any voices. There is no any opposition, even though there is no reformist leader inside the jail. Rouhani, so-called, was not reformist, moderate, so-called moderate, but he's really never reformist. Past the red line of the supreme leaders. Maybe their criticism is so small and there is some small scale, reform demands, but still is not enough.
If President Trump were to come out and send clear signals that he would support that kind of thing again, do you think that would be enough to kindle the flame and get it all fired back up?
It has a both side effect. It can affect government can use as a pretext to suppress people. Suppress some minor voices still remain inside Iran, and it can affect it. If it's titled with maybe some other, support. I don't know. Like Kurdish movement is very strong. Kurmala Party and KDPI have a compound in Iraq Kurdistan and the border, and they have 100,000 Peshmerga forces. If they have a international from the world support them, they could change the balance and things. So that could help. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually ask you something to have your observation. 5 years from now, Israel and Hezbollah gets into a confrontation. which is very, very likely. Israel and parts of Syria get into a confrontation, which is very much likely. What impact would this have on the US? What impact would this have on Iran 5 years from now? Because you do have obviously to deal with nuclear Iran. You do have obviously to deal with the whole region as a whole. So if you were a US policymaker, what would you kind of describe today, at least prescribe in terms of the scenario?
Let me start with answering this thing. Iraqi Kurdistan is the strongest among the Kurdish part today. But always they meet with the Iranian counterpart last 10 years. They're telling them, US, Western powers, they're going to leave here. We are here. So the Kurds, they leave eventually, but we are here. So that's message is the people still are fear the lack of support of the US and the international community. Eventually, because in 2011, I heard some articles still online, I raised my voice that US, exit from Iraq could be disaster. It could be big disaster, We saw what happened. So ISIS, those all those, the rise and the uncertainty, Iran now is a hand in the region, Iran now want to make a crescent of the Shia crescent, they have planned pass through the Iraqi Kurdistan, go to the Syria, to directly arm the Hezbollah, So, but unfortunately, we don't hear much really serious voice of Israel. I know they are against it. I don't know how long the international community and world can tolerate Iran in the region, because obviously Iran is the only, since 1979, there was no suicide bomber. The Iranian Revolution brought these things, brought this culture to the Middle East. I know it was fanaticism, maybe different feature, but Iran died in Iran. When US came to Iraq, Iran was helping to both Al-Qaeda and the Shia hardline. Unfortunately, many U.S. military, being targeted by Iranian military product to this Shia terrorist groups. We never saw, because we always waiting. Somehow somebody, will rise up, do something about this. But Iran, because they said, when they took the U.S. Marines in the Gulf, we were expecting something going to happen, but it seems never something be done. I don't know what's this puzzle, how, because I'm sure Iran will be back down, will be isolated, but now they are the entire region, they're using it.
It appears to me that this is that the concern that the concern about the U.S. leaving the region is something that many across the region feel. That's something that the Egyptians are concerned about what type of influence we're going to have long term, whether we're going to stay or not, and that's a result of the previous administration. I don't think for a moment that the U.S. is going to leave Iraq that region anytime soon. The question becomes what kind of response the U.S. is going to play, and that's something that remains to be seen. There's no doubt it appears as though we seem to be dragging our feet a bit, but I would say this is a feeling that many in the Middle East have, and the question just becomes how long are we going to feel that way?
Is it a question?
No, it's a comment. It's a comment based on your remarks. Dave?
I'd like to ask you, relative to your political party, based on the three elements of, well, most importantly, I believe, would be your economic as well as your cultural party platform of your party. Just to note, like, the context.
So could be more clear what?
Just basically your party's platform, the various elements that you promote through your party.
What does Komala stand for?
Yeah, the Komala party is Iranian Kurdistan is fighting for free and prosperous Iran that is at peace with its people as well as its neighbor. We fight for democratic, decentralized federal Iran, where human rights are preserved and right of ethnic and religious minority are respected. That's we've been like our party was founded in 1968. It used to be the left-wing party in the 60s and 70s, but eventually we evolved to a more democratic party. We believe so. We reduced our ideological base of our party. We're fighting for Kurdish rights in Iran. I think two main Kurdish parties, Kamala Party and KDPI, do not look for a separation in Iran at this point. We want to have a federal and decentralized Iran, even though this is very difficult, unfortunately. I said because there is no Iranian opposition, there is no Likud. The government will suppress any voices inside. Even though I have contact with a lot of people, Iranian activists, but we see their comment is not encouraging. They see the Kurds as a fear, as a threat. Because they see what Iraqi Kurds are doing, and Syrian Kurds, they following their step in the near future. They think the Kurds looking for different agenda. They always, it used to be before government accusing the Kurds because they want to say they creating second Israel, or they are part of the other countries. But now, unfortunately, we hear these from the Iranian position. They're accusing us as a agenda for December Iran to separate Iran. But I don't know. But I should say, last 10, 15 years, Iranian Kurds become very radicalized. Young people, they very angry, because they see how the government treat the Kurds. Because when the country, there is only part of Iran still political execution is in Kurdistan. They execute political Kurds. 57 Kurds are on death row in Iran. And we just about a month ago, our underground cells, been attacked in been attacked by Iranian security force. 3 of them killed, and 1 who was injured. Took to the present. We have a news. He lost one of his kidneys under torture, and since 7 of his cousins and brothers been arrested by government, nobody knows what happened. So all human rights organization has a picture of this. One.
Yeah, I'm Jerome Corsi with InfoWars. The Kurds, sir, are a strong force in several countries: Iraq, Iran, Turkey, all this region. I've really got 2 questions. First, what do you think the prospects are for a united Kurdistan to be formed? Because each of these governments really fights the Kurds and is concerned about the Kurds gaining political prominence or more ascendancy. What do you think the prospect is that we could have a Kurdistan formed?
I know like Poles being divided for 300 years eventually become one country, But I think time is different. When the Kurds been separated from like 100 years now, the governments in Turkey and Iran, they try to assimilate Kurds, for 100 years. So that's and now is creating big gaps between the Kurds. Maybe Iranian Kurds, Iraq Kurds are more close to each other, because historically the Kurds go to both sides to, alongside each other fight the government. But we don't see any prospect for mega Kurdistan, big Kurdistan. Probably a lot of our enemies they say in the media, the first one agenda to big, but I don't see it that big. But what I see the Kurds should not interfere their inside what they do. Some political party like PKK, so interfering the Iranian Kurdistan, Iraq Kurdistan, we see as not a positive thing. So we have different. Because of the 100 years, we accustomed to different culture, different political attitude. we don't see accustomed to terrorism or using the mass killing people like Iranian Kurds never engage us thing. Never you heard about to go and explode something somewhere. Maybe at some point they engage in armed struggle to military, but not to. So we see each part has its own agenda. We have some sense of solidarity. We support them, but we don't want to interfere into each of us the agenda.
And my second question is for instance, down in Iraq, the Kurds have been a major force fighting ISIS. Really one of the strongest forces. And I would assume also in Iran, there's resistance to ISIS. And the Iranian government has been very strongly in the mix here.
So Iran,
Resisting ISIS. In the entire crisis within Iraq, Iran has been wanting to divide Iraq and take Iraq over. I mean, it's been a major. There's really three parts of Iraq: Kurd, Sunni, and Shiite. Three separate sections. So how basically has the ISIS involvement really complicated life for the Kurds in Iran?
Because ISIS does not enter Iranian Kurdistan directly, but that's my theory, my thinking. Because the rise of ISIS just destroyed Sunni part of Iraq and Syria. So ISIS destroyed Mosul, the second city in Iraq, Anbar, Salahuddin, and Syria also Sunni. So ISIS never, is Sunni hardline, but is hurting the Sunnis, which is ironic. So there is not like some theories that maybe Iranian is behind, to indirectly to do these things in Iran. So the rise of ISIS helped Iran image international communities fighting terrorism for some point, even though the people know that Iran is a mother of all terrorism in the region. Iran behind all terrorism from Middle East to South America or as far as the Philippines. So Iran used the rise of ISIS, to show he's not terrorism, he's fighting terrorism. But in reality, you don't see anything. Why ISIS, why they did not do anything directly to Iran, even though there was some small scope last month inside Iranian parliament, but it was not enough. Iran never did anything to Shia part of Iraq. So this is ironic. So I'm skeptical about how the rise of ISIS helping to Sunni radicalism. So in fact, it's benefiting Shia in Iraq because after now is all part of Sunni, provinces in Iraq being raised to down. I don't think the Iraqi government going to spend $40 billion to build a mosque. It's not going to happen. Like 2 million refugees Sunni in Iraq, Kurdistan. The government not helping. But for the last 3 years, the Iraqi government was sending budget to the ISIS, to Mosul, but it was cutting Kurdish budget. So all this element, I think, is helping the Iran.
So Russia just purchased oil from Kurdistan, a $30 billion deal for 20 years. We're looking at Turkey and the United States are key players in the oil with Kurdistan. Turkey used to have a lot of conditions on Kurdistan on how to move this oil. They're now not going to have as much chokehold over Kurdistan, which I can appreciate. However, Russia has not been a very good player with the United States. How is this going to impact this is very, very tricky now. You've got Russians who side with Iran. They don't have confidence in Iraq being anything, but they believe that Iraq's going to get divided up into probably 3 different political regions. How is this impacting the relationship with the United States when we feel that the Russians, not we as in me, but our government has felt that Russia has been a very tricky player. This is giving them a valuable resource to manipulate and utilize throughout Europe. They're going to apparently get this oil refined in Germany. So I guess my question to you is, was this just Kurdistan saying we're going to do business with whomever we want? What are the senses of loyalty to the United States? What is the thought there? A $30 billion deal is nothing to sneeze at for 20 years.
As I said, Iraqi Kurdistan, I think, I'm not Iraqi Kurds, but I've been there, I know. They're one of the sincere ally of the United States and West, beside Israel. They proved, for the only part, they helped, not even for 8 years when U.S. Army was in Iraq, not even one U.S. member army in Egypt. For Kurdistan was always safest place in Iraq for the U.S. Army for the unification. But when the U.S. left in 2011, so the Iraqi Kurds left at the mercy of the Iraqi government and Iranian government. Iran said, we are here, they're going to leave eventually. So, and even now, we are hearing when the Kurdistan asking for referendum, we just heard in the U.S. Objection of the U.S. government, and I said, still they are thinking preserving Iraqi integrity is an important part of U.S. foreign policy. This failed country, the Iraqi government, Maliki, create a sectarian conflict in Iraq. Maliki, because the ISIS is not just some foreign, militia that come from Iraq. There are Sunni regions inside Iraq. Because the Maliki militia, like when 2003, used to be 10-15% Iraqi army Kurds. Now it's none. There is no militia, the Hashd-Shaabi, is the upper hand. They have now Air Force. So when the Kurds see all the threat, so if they offer to U.S., they can stay here, the Kurds could be close ally for the United States and the Middle East. They could be like, that mountain border between Iran and the rest of the world, but they don't see these concerns of the U.S. foreign policy in the future.
I guess my question though is, how is this impacting? This is a $30 billion deal with the Soviet Union. How does this impact, Russia?
I think 3 million.
I'm dating myself.
3 million.
Oh, 3 billion?
It's not 30.
I apologize. I probably have dyslexia or something. My question though is, how is this impacting its relationship with the United States? This specific deal with the oil, because it's taking some out of what the United States was actually purchasing now. It's splitting this up.
I don't think it's like the Greece buying the S-300s, things, the military hardware. So is a member of the NATO, and Turkey considering to buy those from Russia, So even the member of the NATO. So I don't think. Maybe just the business,
But I would tell you that that the answer is, and this I've said before in talks, which is the $3 billion deal with Russia. The Kurds still have plenty of oil to produce, and they can definitely produce more if the U.S. wanted. So there's no problem with that. The concern, of course, becomes, and this is something that I've been talking with members of Congress about as well, and the concern becomes that we're dragging our feet. That's really what it is. The Kurds need the money. They're broke. They're desperate for the revenue. So the question becomes, who is going to buy the oil from them? If it's the Russians, it is. They don't want to deal with the Russians.
I understand. I thought it was being taken from the supply.
No.
Okay, my misunderstanding.
Now, of course, that opens up a lot of questions or concerns, because you have the Russians in the north, you have the Iranians in the south, and you have the Sunni in the middle who are sitting ducks, and you have the Russians in the north who are working with the Iranians in the south.
That's
So if we don't, if the U.S. policy we don't start doing something a little bit quicker and stop dragging our feet on this, then we're in essence giving Iraq period, in its entirety, to the Russian influence as
I
opposed
think
to our
in
own.
2014, when the Iraqi crude oil was to U.S., they kept them as a shore 100 miles. Did not allow the oil come inside the United States.
That
And
was
caused them millions, you know, to
I
because
think
the
this is
insurance and the ship.
I think this is just a big warning flag to the United States. I guess that's what I was looking for, and that's essentially what you told me. Because dealing with the Russians is basically saying, if you're not going to be our friend, we'll find others.
Well, in fact, you see others have done that as well. During the Obama administration, the Egyptians were getting arms from the Russians because we weren't giving it to them and they needed it.
Let's be specific. Obama wasn't giving it to them. We,
Right.
as in me, and you,
That's-
supported
that's-
Egypt.
that's correct.
Members of government.
You know, a member of NATO.
Agreed-
Buy
agreed as
S-300s,
well.
you know, Turkey considering to buy S-400, so.
Gotcha.
We
Makes
can,
sense.
exactly.
I'm gonna give you some commentary, which is also is a warning. Firstly, the US, in terms of its Middle East policies, it's getting its oil and energy in this hemisphere. So it's becoming less critical to a certain extent. But what I heard from you, effectively, everything about perseverance. It's nothing about being overly proactive. God forbid if the so-called sanctions were not lifted, the Revolutionary Guard would be taking its so-called angst against obviously the Kurds. But this is something that I want you to have a historical viewpoint. When Zionism was created, effectively it was trying to get as many Jews out of Russia, Poland, and Germany. Most there actually were assimilated. Those who went to Palestine survived the generations that were there. Those who did not, which were the majority, were annihilated in the Holocaust. So this is a stern warning. If you are using the oil, if there's a way to begin to create some sort of nation-building opportunities, then you would have to engage in migration, because it's about perseverance, from what I understand here. That's the essence of what my wording to you is about. A bit of history put on as far as what the dynamics for you are today.
I just wanted to ask, with the relationship of Turkey with Qatar becoming stronger, what implications for the region do you see for the strength of Turkey maintaining its strong relationship to NATO?
Yeah, you know, when last month President Trump went to the Gulf country, you know, we saw a united front, Arab, you know, Gulf countries, you know, against Iran. It was so positive, but unfortunately, the Qatar crisis, I mean, is seemingly is weakening the Arab front and the Iranian government, I think, manipulating and using these crises between Arab countries. We saw some warm, you know, discussion with Iranian and Qataris, you know. For years, Qatar was in conflict with Saudi Arabia. You know, Qatar, you know, they are helping the fanatic Islamic groups inside Syria, and other parts. So there was evidence, you know. And even Turkey, unfortunately, Turkey was a country that could move at the path of democracy before, like 10 years ago. But now we see the Erdogan, you know, he said he doesn't care about becoming an EU member. You know, he think about reviving the Ottoman Empire. You know, he on many occasions said it doesn't matter, we don't have our military in all the world. Middle East, now our economic, you know, the economic power we can use to those countries. So that's a fear. Now, unfortunately, when Turkey and Qatar, you know, taking weakening the opposition of the Arab country, you know, against Iranian. Iran probably, it was a big help to Iran. You know, believe me, what we saw when the President Trump in every meeting in the Middle East was strong, you know, war against Iran. That was very positive. It was very, by Iranian, perceived as a very strong force. But now the Qatar crisis probably is not a good sign, probably. Even though Erdogan said he's going to resolve it, you know, things, but I don't see it.
Thank you.
As you move forward, what is it clearly that you are looking for from the United States? Not a vague, we want your support, but are there clear, identified things that you are looking for from the U.S. in support of Iranian Kurds?
I am here for 7 years now. I work as a Communal Party representative, but we have a recently we thinking organized the Kurdish Political Party Iran to have one organization from the American base to come. We're asking the U.S. government or the U.S. media or NGO think tanks to, but especially U.S. government to support the Kurdish movement in Iran. It's a very, very alive. It's very strong, but nobody talk about Iranian Kurds. You don't hear about, like Syrian Kurds, about 2-3 million. Nobody heard about Syrian Kurds probably 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But now we every day talking about YPG. When Rojava become word, everybody knows about Syrian Kurds. But Iranian Kurds, as I said at the beginning, they are the mother of the Kurdish nationalism, the Kurdistan Republic, and resistant. Now there is strong resistance inside Iranian Kurdistan. There is a big NGOs working, for the children, for the women, like the only place in Iran, like Iran did not allow, for example, women to ride bicycle. So 100,000 women come the street with the bicycle, man, the child. So this is, and this happened, we saw, so there is a very strong opposition. Maybe it's not the armed opposition at this point, but there is strong opposition. There is a Kurdish political parties and Komala and KDPI. They have 1,000 activists inside Iran. As I said, last week we lost a lot of people, and KDPI also lost 20 people just recently inside Iran. So there is there, but we hoping to United States government help us acknowledge that.
How do you want their help? What specifically are you looking for?
First, I think for human rights, so you at least perceived as a human right. I used to, when I met with the State Department, it was said with the human rights. Now, but there is more than human rights inside Iran. There is ethnic demands. That is because the Kurds, they are different religion from rest of Iran. They are, the budget allocation. They keep them as a pool. They're not trying to suppress them in any way. So, but we hear the United States, they help us acknowledge what's going to happen in Iranian Kurdistan.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, absolutely.